So now let's talk about creating other reference geometries, and here we'll start with axis. So you can go to this reference geometry panel, and here we have axis, coordinate system and point, which we'll discuss, and we are going to start with axis. But before doing that, let me show you a very quick way of generating axis from existing geometries and features, and that option is here. So go to this visibility option and select this temporary axis. Now, when you click this option, SolidWorks will generate temporary axes for these kind of circular features. So we have this hole here, and right at the center of this hole, we now have this axis. So all these axes will start showing up here, and then you can use these temporary axes to just create any kind of geometry. Now that's the quickest way of generating an axis. If, however, you don't want to use this feature, you can just deactivate it. And if you want a much more permanent kind of axis, then go to this and select axis. And now, once again, we have several options that you can use to create the axis. Let's now start with this cylindrical shape. So I'll just click right inside this, and here we are. We have got this axis once again, but once I click OK, SolidWorks will create a permanent kind of axis which is also added to the feature tree. So now you can modify or maybe even delete this one whenever required. So that's our axis. So let's press Ctrl Z a couple of times to get back to this original drawing. And once again, I'll go to reference geometry and axis. Now, if you want to create an axis connecting 2 points, then well, just select 2 points in your drawing. For example, I'll select this one, and now we have an axis connecting these 2 points, kind of like this. Once again, I'll click OK, and here we are. We've got the axis connecting these 2 points. Let's go to this axis again. And now let's see how we can create axis which is at the intersection of 2 planes. So I'll select this plane, and then I'm going to select this plane, and right at the intersection of these 2 planes we have this axis. So when you look at this from this perspective, you can clearly see where the axis is made. So here we are. If we extend this plane further down along this plane, right here is the point of intersection, and that's where we've got this axis. So click OK, and we have another axis. Once again, I'll go to axis, and now if you want to use an existing edge as an axis, then well, just select this. Now this is one of the least kind of obvious options because you already have the edge which you can use, but just in case you want to use an edge as an axis, right here we have it now, and then you can use this axis in your features. Once again, I'll go to axis. And finally, let's talk about point and face plane. That's this last option here. So in this case, you just need to start with a point. And in this case, I'm selecting this point and then select a face. Now this will create an axis which is exactly perpendicular to the face and will pass through this point. So if you extend this thing further, it will drop along this plane at a 90-degree angle, and that's what this axis is all about. Now in this case, I did not start with all of these options. SolidWorks will automatically figure out the kind of axis which we are making. For example, in this case, I just selected a point and a plane, and SolidWorks figured out that this is the last one. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm just going to select axis again, and now I'll select this cylindrical face, and look at this, it will automatically pick the right kind of axis which we are making. So all you need to do is just select the objects, for example points, planes or edges, and SolidWorks will figure out the type of axis which you are planning to make. So click OK, and that's how you can create axes. Now I'm going to select all of this axis from my feature tree, and I'll delete them all. And let's see the next one, and that's point. Now once again, here also you don't need to select any of these options, and you can directly create points simply by selecting the respective feature. So in this case, I'm just going to create a point right at the center of a face. So I'll just select this face, and here we are. We have got this point right here. Now this is exactly at the centroid of this face, and that's where it will add it. Just click OK. And here we are, we've got the point. Now we can use this point as a reference for other geometries. Again, I'll do it. So go to point, and maybe this time I'll just select this face, and you can see right here we have another point which is at the centroid. But now in this case, if you select any other point as well, for example, I'll just cancel out this one, and I'm just going to select point, and I'm going to select this point and then this plane. Now that I have selected two features, SolidWorks will again figure out that this is projection kind of point, and it will make a point right here. So this point is made exactly on this plane along a projected line. So if we drop a line which is perpendicular to this plane, this is the point where that line will intersect the plane, and that's where we'll get the point. So just I'm going to click OK, and that's where we have that another reference point. Let's go to point again, and now let's just select this edge. Now when you select this kind of circular edge or maybe an arc, then SolidWorks will create a point right at the center of that circular edge. There we are. Once again, point, and now let's just create one at the intersection of two geometries, and for that I'm just going to select this edge and this one, and right at the intersection of these two edges we've got this point. So once again, that's the intersection type, and SolidWorks will figure out the type of edge which we are making. Click OK, and we are done. Now if you want to make several points along any edge, then you can use the next option. So first let me just delete all of these, and again I'll go to this point option, and now I'm just going to select this circular edge. Okay, so here we are, we have got the circular edge, and by default it will make a point right here which is at the center. But in this case we don't want that, so I'll just change that to this last option. Here we are, and now it will create a point exactly here. Now if you want to create this point right at the center, which is this point, then you can go to percentage and just change this percent value to 50, and now it is exactly at the center of this circular arc edge. If however you want more than one point, then you can increase the number of points here. So I'll just make it 3, and also I'll decrease the percentage to 20. And here we are. Now after every 20% value we've got this point, and we still have remaining here some gap, and that's about 40%. Now instead of a percentage value you want a specific distance, then select this distance option and then specify the distance here. For example, I'll type 6, and now after every 6 unit we've got a point, and this is the remaining length. You can also increase number of points if you want to fill this area. If you want to distribute all these points evenly along this edge, then select the last option, and now it will automatically distribute these points evenly along this edge. You can also increase number of points, but still it will evenly distribute it along the selected edge. Now the same is true for simple sketch geometry. So in this case I'm using feature from my existing part, but if you have a 2D sketch you can use the same option. For example, now if I go to sketch and maybe create a spline kind of like this, here also we can use this spline and create several points on it. So I'll just once again go to feature, reference geometry, and point. I'll select this one, and once again you can see we have 8 points because it's using the last option which we selected. So again we can use all the other options too for creating several of these points. So now I'm just going to select point 5 and this last one and every single feature in between that, and I'm going to delete them all. Now finally let's talk about creating coordinate system, and you can create coordinate systems using this option right here. Now we already have a basic coordinate system here which is the default one, but if you just want another one for maybe let's say CNC machining, and you just want to specify a different coordinate system which is with respect to your selected part, or maybe you want to specify several different coordinate systems for several different features of your drawing, then you can do that using this coordinate system. So here I'll go to this coordinate system, and now the first thing you need to select is the origin. Now it will automatically show you the basic coordinate or the main coordinate system of this SolidWorks feature, but here I'm just going to select maybe this point as a new coordinate point, and then I'm just going to select the x-axis. Let's make it along this line. All right, now the y-axis, I'm just going to make it this one. That's the y-axis. And now we have the z-axis, which is this one. So it's obvious that this will be the z-axis, so you don't need to actually select this one. Now if you want to reverse the direction of any of these axes, for example, I'll just click here to reverse the direction of x-axis, and maybe I'll just click here to reverse the direction of y-axis. So you can do that as well, and the z-axis direction will automatically change according to these changes. Now once you have created axis, click OK, and we now have a coordinate system 1 added here. Now you can also rename this if you want to. So here I'll go to this properties, and here I'm just going to add a different name for this. So I'll just call it sample part and click OK. And we now have a new coordinate system called sample part. Now you can use this coordinate system when saving this file. So here I'm just going to select save as, and let's just save it in IGS. And in this one, I'll just go to options, and here in the output coordinate system, you can select default, which is the default coordinate system of this drawing, or you can select sample part coordinate system, which we just now created. Now SolidWorks will export this part with sample part as the main coordinate system. So click OK and specify a name and click save, and that's going to save your file with that coordinate system. So maybe I'll just use this other references name, the same name here, and I'll just save this file. And now we have the part file saved with the new coordinate system. And that's how you can create all these other reference geometries in SolidWorks.